4,000 years ago, someone carved a message into clay, not a shopping list, not a tax record, a location, the exact location of a garden where the gods rested, where they ate, where they slept, where they walked among trees that no human had ever seen. This tablet has been sitting in a museum for over a century, translated, studied, debated, and what it describes has never been fully explained because the location it gives is real. It exists on a map. You can find it today, and what is there should not be possible. 4,000 years ago, someone wrote this down. To understand this tablet, we need to understand who wrote it. The Sumerians. They lived in Mesopotamia, the region we now call Iraq, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. And they were not primitive. They were not simple cave dwellers. The Sumerians built the first cities. They invented writing. They created the first legal system. They mapped the stars. They calculated mathematics that we still use today. In many ways, civilization as we know it began with them, and they left behind thousands of clay tablets, tablets that record their laws, their trade, their astronomy, their poetry, and their mythology. Now here is the important thing. For the Sumerians, mythology and history were not separate things. When they wrote about their gods, they were not writing fiction. They were writing what they believed was literal truth, historical fact. And one of the most important texts they ever wrote was about a place called Dilmun. The tablet is called Enki and Ninhursag. It was written approximately 4,000 years ago, and it describes a place called Dilmun in exact detail. Listen carefully to what it says. The land of Dilmun is pure. The land of Dilmun is clean. The land of Dilmun is bright. In Dilmun, the raven utters no cry. The lion does not kill. The wolf does not snatch the lamb. The sick say not, I am sick. The old woman says not, I am old. This is not a metaphor. This is not poetry for its own sake. The Sumerians were describing a real place, a place without death, without disease, without predators, without aging, a place where the great god Enki and the mother goddess Ninhursag lived and rested, where the gods themselves walked among the trees and ate the fruits of the earth. The tablet describes 8 specific plants that grew in this garden, 8 sacred plants that Enki consumed and for which Ninhursag cursed him, with 8 specific diseases, 1 for each plant. This is not vague mythology. This is specific, detailed, geographical. And then, the tablet does something extraordinary. It tells us where Dilmun is. The tablet gives us specific geographical markers. It describes Dilmun as a land where the sun rises over the sea, where fresh water springs rise up through the ground, even surrounded by salt water, where a great civilization once flourished. For decades, scholars debated where Dilmun could be. Some said it was mythical, some said it was somewhere in India, some said it was Eden itself. And then archaeologists started digging in Bahrain, the small island nation, in the Persian Gulf, and what they found changed the debate forever. Beneath the surface of Bahrain, they found the ruins of an ancient city, a city that matched every geographical description in the Sumerian tablet. Fresh water springs, rising through the ground, on an island surrounded by salt water, exactly as the tablet described. They found over 100,000 burial mounds, 100,000, on an island smaller than New York City. Evidence of a civilization that had been there for thousands of years. They found temples, they found trading records that mentioned Dilmun by name, and they found something else, something that nobody expected. Beneath the waters of the Persian Gulf, around Bahrain, there are underwater springs, freshwater springs, rising up through the seabed, in the middle of a saltwater gulf. This is geologically remarkable, and it is exactly what the Sumerian tablet described 4,000 years ago. The tablet says that the god Enki commanded the fresh water to rise up from beneath the earth to fill the land of Dilmun. For centuries, people thought this was mythology. a god commanding water, clearly not literal. But it is literal. The fresh water springs are real. They exist today. Divers have photographed them. Scientists have studied them. Local fishermen have used them for centuries, filling their boats with fresh water from the middle of the sea. The Sumerians described a geological phenomenon that science only confirmed in the modern era, and they described it 4,000 years ago, which raises a question that nobody has fully answered. How did they know? Now let us go back to the tablet and what it says happened. In this garden, the great god Enki was the god of water, of wisdom, of creation. He lived in Dilmun, and in this garden, 8 sacred plants grew, plants of extraordinary power, plants that held the secrets of life itself. Enki ate them, all 8, and for this, the mother goddess Ninhursag was furious. She cursed Enki with 8 specific diseases, one for each plant he consumed. He became sick in 8 different ways simultaneously. The gods gathered, desperate to heal him, and Ninhursag eventually relented. She created 8 healing deities, one for each plant. And among those 8 healing deities was one whose name meant Lady of the Rib. In Sumerian, Tai, the word for rib and the word for life were the same. Lady of the Rib, Lady of Life, a garden, 8 sacred plants, a being created from a rib to restore life, and a paradise where gods walked among trees. Sound familiar? The book of Genesis describes the Garden of Eden, a paradise where the first humans lived, where a serpent offered forbidden fruit, where God walked among the trees, and it gives geographical markers, 4 rivers, the Pishon, the Gihon, the Tigris, and the Euphrates. 2 of those rivers are real. The Tigris and Euphrates flow through modern Iraq. They are the same rivers that defined ancient Mesopotamia, the land of the Sumerians, the land of Dilmun. Scholars who have studied both the Sumerian tablets and the book of Genesis have noted something remarkable. The stories are not just similar, they share specific details. A paradise garden, sacred plants that must not be eaten, a being created from a rib, diseases resulting from consuming forbidden plants, fresh water rising through the earth, gods walking among trees. The Sumerian texts are older than Genesis by at least 1,000 years, which has led some scholars to argue that the Garden of Eden and the Sumerian Dilmun are the same place, remembered differently, written down separately, but pointing to the same location, Bahrain, and the waters of the Persian Gulf. The archaeological evidence from Bahrain is not small, it is extensive. The site of Qalat al-Bahrain, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, contains the ruins of an ancient city that was continuously inhabited for over 4,000 years. Trading records from ancient Mesopotamia mention Dilmun by name as a major trading partner. They describe Dilmun merchants selling copper, pearls, precious stones, and exotic woods, some of which do not grow naturally in the region, which raises its own questions. Where were they getting them? Ancient seals found in Bahrain show a figure sitting beneath a tree, surrounded by other figures, in a garden setting. Archaeologists call it the Tree of Life motif. It appears throughout ancient Mesopotamian art, a sacred tree, a garden, a divine figure, the same image, appearing across thousands of years of human history. The burial mounds of Bahrain are perhaps the most striking evidence. 100,000 burial mounds on a tiny island. This was not a local burial ground. People came here from across the ancient world to be buried in this land because they believed this land was sacred, this land was special, this land was the place where gods had walked. Here is what we know. A 4,000-year-old tablet describes a paradise garden in exact geographical detail. That description matches a real location. That location contains geological phenomena that the ancient text described. before modern science confirmed them. The same location has been continuously revered as sacred for thousands of years. Here is what we do not know: whether the Sumerians were describing a real garden they had visited, or a mythological place that happened to match reality. Whether the Garden of Eden and Dilmun are the same memory passed down through different cultures. Whether the 8 sacred plants actually existed, and if they did, what they were. Whether the freshwater springs were always there, or whether they are the remains of something larger, something that existed before the Persian Gulf, filled with water. Because here is one more fact: approximately 8,000 years ago, the Persian Gulf was not a sea, it was dry land, a vast, fertile valley with rivers running through it. And then the waters came, and it flooded forever. 4,000 years ago, someone sat down and carved the location of paradise into a piece of clay. They described fresh water rising through the sea. They describe a garden without death. They described gods walking among sacred trees, and a being created from a rib to give life. Every geographical detail they wrote points to one small island in the Persian Gulf, an island that has been called sacred for as long as humans have lived near it. The garden may be underwater now, lost beneath 8,000 years of rising seas, but the tablet remains, the springs remain, the burial mounds remain, and the question remains: what exactly did the Sumerians know? If this video changed how you see ancient history, share it with someone today. And if you are not subscribed yet, hit that button right now, because what is coming next is even older and even harder to explain.